Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top. Looking for music that lifts your spirit and fills your heart? Experience the powerful sound of the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square. Now streaming on all your favorite music platforms. Find the Tabernacle Choir on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon Music, and Pandora. Let the music of the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square inspire you today and every day. Whether you're at home, in the car, or on the go, enjoy the beauty of their world-renowned sound anytime. The Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, streaming now.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined once again by Matt Larkin, managing editor and senior writer at Daily Faceoff. Matt, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. Matt, I imagine there's some hockey fan somewhere in America who's watching that game, and it's 4-zip, and there's some honeydew list, or they go to the bathroom, they're pulled away from the TV for a couple minutes, they come back, I guess it's 4-0. They come back and it's 3 goals in 39 seconds. They're like, what just happened? I just went out and moved the car. What happened?
Well, it's funny, too. It's like apparently the motto or the moral of this series is never lead a game 2-0, because
right?
The team that led 2-0 has blown that lead in all 3 games. It's been pretty spectacular, particularly because if you think of the identity of the Vegas Golden Knights and the Carolina Hurricanes and their coaches, John Tortorella and Rod Brind'Amour, they play lockdown hockey. They're known for smothering their opponents. They're known for preferring to win a game 2-1. And it's just been wild back and forth. All 3 games in this series have been absolute barn burners.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Taking a big picture view, hockey people, whether it's the commissioner or whomever, just look at the last year plus, the 4 nations, the Olympics, and now this. I mean, could you ask for anything better for hockey?
And I think I agree. And I think a real testament to it is the fact that even if you look at as hockey markets, Carolina and Vegas, they're not necessarily 2 that will attract fans from all over typically, but we're still seeing huge TV ratings. We're seeing the highest TV ratings we've ever gotten in the U.S. Throughout the entire year, and we're seeing record revenues for the NHL. So it does feel like the game is reaching a new peak right now.
I hesitate to ask you to predict anything because this series has been so incredibly unpredictable. Is there anything you feel sure about going forward?
I'm sure that it's going to continue like this back and forth, and my prediction before the series started was Vegas in 7. It still feels about right. I think both teams are just so well coached, and they're so deep, and they're so good at both ends of the ice that I just don't see either team backing down and wilting in this series. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a big punch back from Carolina. I'm very intrigued, though, to see what Rod Brind'Amour does with his goaltending situation.
Oh, you took the question right out of my mouth.
Yeah, exactly, right? Do you give Freddie Anderson a mulligan and stick with him, or do you pivot to Brandon Bussi, who was excellent? And even if you look at the overtime winner, it was an unbelievably fluky goal. Yeah. So in my mind, he pretty much didn't give up a real goal on a clean shot. So I think that's also a major factor that could determine what happens next.
This Vegas run has been magical, and it's been almost so many games have been on the edge, particularly the Utah series, which seems like it was a long time ago now. How much credit are you giving to the coaching change?
Well, it's funny because I did talk to all the Vegas players leading up to Game 1 when I was there for Media Day, and they all had really, really definitively nice things to say about John Tortorella. And he is a coach who can come in and really change a culture quickly because he has that fire-breathing mentality. But what, to a man, a lot of the Golden Knights players said was, yes, he has that part of his persona. He's very honest with you if you're struggling, but he also has a real human side to him. And I think it was Jack Eichel who told me he feels like John Tortorella really cares. And that's not a knock on Bruce Cassidy. I'm not saying that's shots fired. I'm just saying that's how the Golden Knights seem to feel about Torts. And love him or hate him, he does seem to have a really strong impact. And I think that historically a coach with his type of persona, often, especially in the short term, will always move the needle because it's just such a breath of fresh air for the dressing room, and it's a veteran group of guys. And Tortorella even said he felt like they didn't need that much because they're a group that has already won a Stanley Cup, a lot of them. They only needed a few mild tweaks, and I think just his persona going into that dressing room has put them over the top.
I want to go back to your point about goaltending and giving a mulligan. is it a mulligan or is it 13 goals in 3 games? So this is more than a mulligan. This is now a trend in the series, and you can't just add up the goals because it's where are you losing the puck on the ice and what kind of opportunities are you making? Are you giving Vegas to score? So you got to factor that in, and then also, I didn't go to goaltender camp, but listen to people talk about it. That it was a bad bounce and it was fluky the way it came off the boards and this off the skate and in, but a little over skating there. You're supposed to go from post to post specifically so that doesn't happen. That's a fundamental that's been covered, and you should have that down at that level. So what do you think of that take, and what do you think about the 3-game trend? Because all that has to be weighed when making this decision.
For sure, and I think it is a fair point. You could argue that Bussey, he wasn't exactly in the right place at the right time on that goal. But overall, if you look at Freddie Anderson's body of work, historically he has a history of wilting deeper in the playoffs. Last season, the first couple rounds, he was at a .937 save percentage, and he was something like .838 in round 3 against Florida. He's a big guy, and I do wonder if we're seeing his annual physical breakdown maybe just happening around later. We also have to factor in he is grieving a tragedy right now, right? He was very close to his agent, Claude Lemieux, and yes, he did come forward right after and have a great game in response the day after, which was the one that closed out the Montreal series. But we still don't know how he's really processing what he's gone through and whether it maybe could be a delayed effect that's sort of carrying into the series. So I think all in all, if I'm Rod Brindamore, I consider giving Freddie Anderson a break, because if Carolina loses the next game, you can't do it for an elimination game. You can't say, okay, now we're going to go to Brandon Bussey. I think you got to go to Bussey for this one because he showed something. And if it doesn't work, you can still pivot back to Anderson for the next game. So I think this is your window. I think you can only actually do it right now. So to me, if I'm Rod Brindamore, I go with Brandon Bussey.
This is a little old, but the review in Game 2 by Vegas Golden Knights was somewhat controversial, but yet Tortorella said he would do it 10 out of 10 times. So I like the way he came out, almost like defiantly, that was saying, yeah, I would do it every time, even though it was, we know what happened and it cost him in the short term and all that stuff. But what do you think of that? Because I like his conviction to look at it and make the call, even though, in this case, with being down a man as far as a penalty is pretty significant, especially compared to the other sports.
Yeah, it's funny. I read it as so when I was in the room when he said it. I read it more as a reflection of his personality. He's not going to give any quarter. He's going to just double down or triple down, and he's not going to admit whether it was a questionable decision. If you look at what Rod Brindamore said after, he didn't want to really get too much into it, but he did say, I don't know, I see it as if there's even a shadow of a doubt, you don't challenge. And that's kind of how I leaned. I think it was a risky challenge as soon as it happened, and obviously it proved very costly in that game.
Right, but I love his attitude, even though I took it in almost in a defiant sense that, screw you, I'm going to do it. And I don't care whether anybody likes it or dislikes it. What they think doesn't matter to me in the least.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's kind of a tort's gonna torts type of moment. He's not gonna relent, especially minutes after a game ended when his team ended up losing that game. I know technically Vegas still tied the game again after that, but still overall you could argue it changed the face of that game in terms of the back and forth, right? So I don't think he's gonna want to just give up that admission on the spot.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Just top.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Do you think fans are outraged after the goal was not disallowed the second time, or is that clear-cut enough? How many bodies get to be in the crease? It looked like a 6-car pileup in Turn 3 in a NASCAR race. How much action can there be in the crease before a goal is disallowed?
Yeah, it's really tough. I think you have to treat it on a case-by-case basis, and I think it's the only way you can do it fairly. You have to just look at, okay, who contacted the goaltender, Was he pushed in by someone on his own team? When did the puck cross the line? When was the whistle blown? All of those factors, depending on the review, you need to, I think, use a fine-tooth comb and set up a broad stroke to determine what's right. And I know it can lead to perceived inconsistencies. Well, what about this one that wasn't disallowed? This one was disallowed. But I think that's the only way you can do it with maximum accuracy. You have to just look at every little element of the play.
Mammoth are sitting on some assets and got some talent on the team. A guy like Dylan Larkin, I just saw a story that he may want to be traded, but they were listing Panthers, Wild, or Golden Knights, and obviously that's not the Mammoth. But from the Mammoth perspective, when do you know it, or if it even comes to that, to make a deal for an established guy if it means giving up one or two of your prospects that seems like we've been hearing about, and at least here in our area, we're so much anticipating these guys arriving on the scene because we've been hearing about them for a year or two since the team moved. It seems like Bill Armstrong, you got to be careful here. You want to improve the team, but you don't want to improve the team in the short term by giving up a young stud that could be good for the next decade.
Right. So I'm guessing you're referring to Tejay Ginla and Denoyer. Yeah, those are the two big ones. You're fascinating to me. And it's funny. So I did write about Dylan Larkin and about places he wants to go. I think the story on Daily Faceoff might have just gone live on our site while we're talking, guys. And I did mention Utah still in that piece because Utah to me is a team that's in a fascinating window where they've improved a lot. They've reached that critical mass of young players. And I think you're a trade away from leveling up and joining the Colorados and Dallases and Notice. I think you could bridge that gap with one more move. And if you're Bill Armstrong, maybe you consider holding on to one, but you're willing to trade the other. So if Detroit, the problem is Detroit's lost, they've missed the playoffs 10 years in a row. They don't necessarily want futures. But if they're in a situation where they don't have the right offer, they could consider taking a Caleb Denoyer, who's a center, as part of that package. And then you bring in Larkin, and then you have Nick Schmaltz, you have Logan Cooley, Dylan Larkin. You're three deep up the middle, and I think Utah, to me, is an intriguing team to make a trade like that because, one, with the prospects they have, but two, just cap-wise, if you go up and down what they have right now, most of the key pieces are under contract. There's no really scary free agent that needs to be re-signed. So there is a window to add. With the right move, you can join the top contenders. It's just a matter of, okay, yes, Dylan Larkin, he's only listed 3 teams that he's interested in, but I'm still a little skeptical on that. I think that he's going to have to expand that list. It's not always easy, especially a team like Vegas, who's in a pretty tight situation as is.
Do you think if they just stand pat in that internal organic improvement, guys getting a year better and all that, could the Mammoth be a 100-point team? 92 this year. There are only 300-point teams in the West. I mean, if you get there, it seems like you're right there at the top shelf.
Yeah, if I'm making a prediction right now for next season, I'm going to say yes, 100 points. Probably right around there. Even if you just look at Logan Cooley alone and the improvements you're seeing from him, and let's say we get a full season in which he doesn't get banged up and miss a chunk of games, that alone could give you that extra cluster of wins. Plus, you have a full season of Mackenzie Weegar now playing your top 4 on D. So I think they're already a 100-point team. I think the question is, do you make the trade now to become a 110-point team?
Ooh. Wow.
Because there were all of 3 of those in the league this year. You'd be one of 4 if you got there.
If you add Dylan Larkin and you're trading futures, so you're not pulling anything out of that lineup. So let's say if we use Caleb Denoyer as the example, you're just dropping Dylan Larkin into a lineup that was already a playoff team this year. Yeah. So I can see it for sure.
So you're fine giving up one, but not both.
I think so. And I think if it's one, it's got to be for a real sweetheart situation. So Dylan Larkin, I think he's 29. His contract is quite reasonable, right? He's less than $9 million a year. And in the $104 million rising cap world, that contract is even better. So if you can get a perfect asset that has several years left in his prime and actually gives you a real chance at the Stanley Cup for a sustained period of time, then maybe you do make that exception and trade one of your top guys. Because the thing is with Utah, yes, they have Denoyer and Ginla, but there's still more below them on the prospect ladder. They have several other, whether it's Cole Baudouin. There are so many in this system. They're really stacked. So I think they can spare one if it's for the right deal.
Well, Matt, that gives us something to ponder. Thanks for dropping that on the way out the door. Good work.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the good debate here. Good questions.
Matt Larkin, managing editor and senior writer at Daily Faceoff. It's a 100-point team if they get everybody back and stay healthy, and it could be 110 if they trade futures and get a major impact guy right now.
Well, if you do that for that level of player.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then, if you have big-time success, and it doesn't really matter what the youngster does someplace else.
Right.
You're okay with that. You just got to make sure.
If you get your results, they can get theirs, then it's a win-win, whatever. Fine. You don't have to pick their pocket. You just have to win.
Right. Exactly. If you win, then whatever you gave up was worth it, because if you got to the obviously if you won the whole thing, but even if you got there to play, that's something that you can't just sneeze at, because you take your chances once you get there, because one little freaky bounce and the next thing you know, you're hoisting the cup. So I understand that. It's still, but you just can't take a player and, okay, he's doing all this over here and assume, okay, we're just going to add whatever production he had, boom, he comes over here and he's the same player and everything's great. It doesn't necessarily always work that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think they just saw that this year, making the trade with Buffalo.
With Pajerka, I get it. Yeah. But he would probably go in the deal, I would think. But I
can see what you're thinking.
But that's beside the point. Beside the point that you're making. Yeah, it does. The transition, it just doesn't go from place A and then he comes here and he's the same player or better. You don't know. That's the somewhat, I wouldn't say necessarily scary, but it's something that has to be weighed and debated and back and forth and so forth. Because the last thing you want is somebody to come in, get hurt, not be functioning at the same level, and then in a year or two, the guy that you gave up blows up.
The thing that Matt brought up, which is a really good point, which is one where, again, we're newer to this and we got too many teams to follow at the quote-unquote major league level to be following these guys on the way up. How many... And this requires projection by, Armstrong and his group. How many of these young guys really are going to be something? And how many, like if you think you have...
Not all, certainly.
Right. And if you think you have like 2 or 3 who have a really high chance, and you got another 3 who have a decent chance to be something, or 2 more, whatever those numbers are, how many of them can fit given the roster and who's going to age off the roster? It's really what the Oklahoma City Thunder have. They have so many good young players and they have so many draft picks. Like, they got to move some. They got to do some 2-for-1s or 3-for-1s. Now, it might be a stretch to say the Mammoth are in that position. You got to go evaluate that, and we can't really do that sitting here right now.
But our boy Teej, we've been hearing about him. And thinking, he's supposed to be all this.
I'd be surprised if he's all this and what we've heard about him, that he'd be in the group. But given that you have...
So you give Desnoyers?
You have some in the group, and you have other people in the system, I would think those. But wouldn't be the first time we've heard, hey, you can have... And you follow baseball, you know this as well as anyone. Hey, we got prospects in the minors. You can have some of them. You can't have that one. Now, whether you try to protect 2, and that's the whole negotiation, the back and forth.
I would go with Desnoyer, because Desnoyers, it's hard to say. It's like when my kid was in grade school and doing the capitals, and she says Desmones.
Nice.
So basically, the capital of Ire is Desmones.
Bill Armstrong needs to understand that your charge to him is build a Stanley Cup champ, but... build a Stanley Cup champ with names that are easy to pronounce.
Yeah. I mean, how do you get Desnoyers ever Desnoyers?
Cooley?
Of course, he's looking at me saying, wait a second, how do you get Tawil out of Tolier?
See? Cooley and Keller, fine.
Yeah.
But you start getting 10 syllables and French pronunciations.
And French pronunciations, yeah.
So right away... biased against prospects out of Ottawa. There it is. Okay.
I mean, Quebec. Come on, Rudy Gobert. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert. Once he managed to master the language. I loved interviewing Rudy Gobert. He was gauging when he could do that. All right, more with Rudy Gobert coming up. DJ and PK, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Summer is all about freedom, fun, and growing up. And between the ages of 9 and 13, kids are starting to form their views about alcohol. With more independence, their still developing brains need more guidance and support than ever. That's why summer is the perfect time to stay connected and plan fun, safe family activities together. Research shows kids who spend quality time with their parents doing what they enjoy are less likely to drink underage. And when kids feel close to you, they're more likely to listen, especially when you set clear expectations. In fact, kids who drink before 15 are far more likely to struggle with alcohol later. This summer, create a no-bummer summer with fun, alcohol-free activities for your kids. Go to summer.parentsempowered.org to take a quick quiz and discover ideas tailored to your family. A little time together can make a big difference. For more information and to learn more about how to prevent underage drinking, visit parentsempowered.org.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.